Hello, and welcome to another episode of Livin the Farm Life. My name is Gretchen Riley, and I'm here with Dr. Erin Bryan, and we are here at the Purina Animal Nutrition Center in Gray Summit, Missouri. And this is our research facility where we take care of animals, but also do all of our nutritional research. And the topic today is a really important one, I think. And we want to talk a little bit about farm biosecurity and how to make sure that both people and animals are doing the right things to stay happy and healthy. So, Dr. Bryan, I'd like to kick it off a little bit by showing folks what we do here on the farm to try to keep our animals and people safe and healthy. So you can kind of see here that we use what we call disinfectant mats. They're a foot bath, and it's a great way for us to, with the help of this disinfectant fluid, to make sure that our guests are walking through this disinfectant solution when they come into our meeting room. And then when we go out onto the farm, we're kind of rinsing off or disinfecting against those bad germs that we don't want to be spread between people and animals. And then we also ask everybody to wear some very nice fancy booties for that extra added protection. So, knowing that these practices are in place for the safety of our animals here at the farm, since they're research animals and they're pretty important to us, Dr. Bryan, maybe give us an idea of what goes on at the units that you work in, but then maybe some great tips for folks at home if they'd like to be a little bit more cognizant of farm biosecurity.
Absolutely. And so we've got a lot of great practices here at the farm that we follow that are also replicated in a lot of commercial facilities, and that can be applied at home as well, which is really great. They're really, really simple. And I work in the swine unit, and so obviously biosecurity is a major concern for us.
Absolutely.
And so one of the things that we really focus on is the concept of trying to stay away from other operations of pigs. And so obviously when you think about like sending your kid off to school, for example, you mix with all of those kids that maybe they haven't been hanging out with all summer, and they're going to pass those germs around, and then mom gets sick for the rest of the year, right? And it goes on from there. It's the same thing with pigs, unfortunately. And so if we were to track something in by being around those other pigs that aren't a part of our population here, we have the risk then of bringing that into our group and then getting them sick with kind of those bad germs that you were talking about.
Right.
And so by mitigating that exposure, or by limiting that exposure to other pigs, that's one of the really important steps that we take there.
Yeah.
We also have farm clothes. I'm sure everybody at home has their own batch of farm clothes, right? I know I do at my personal farm. And they live separate from the rest of your clothes, right? You don't want to get your nice clothes nice and dirty. And there's a reason for that. And all that dust and that dirt and that grime that comes in there, germs are in there as well.
Right.
And sometimes those aren't germs that we worry about, but those are germs that the animals have to worry about, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so at each one of these units, we have clothes actually available to our workers that live here, that get washed here, that do not leave the farm. And so again, that just kind of limits our risk of bringing things in and out. Again, our workers do a really great job of trying to keep things nice and clean and sanitary, but just asking them to take clothes home, wash them, and bring them back. We can do that here without having to ask them to worry about that.
Now you do work in the swine department, but this concept of animal health safety really is across all species, whether you've got backyard chickens or horses or backyard pigs or whatever the case may be, kind of minimizing that potential disease spread is really important for anybody and whatever size operation you have. So we've talked a lot about kind of things that we do to mitigate risk here for our guests coming into the farm, things that are really important for maybe commercial operations to pay attention to, but the whole reason why we even pay attention to biosecurity. So what are maybe some helpful hints that folks at home in their backyard operation could think about doing besides keeping clothes separate and things like that? Any helpful hints there?
Yeah, absolutely. And so a lot of the same principles that we've been talking about here can actually be applied at home as well. And so maybe you don't have to go all out with the mats and the foot baths. We've got a lot of traffic coming in and out, right? But if you're inviting your friends over that have their own animals at home that maybe you don't mix with, maybe just ask them to bring a change of shoes. If they're going to wander around with you, don't have them wear their own work boots out. Maybe give them a pair if you have an extra, or ask them to wear something else that they wouldn't normally wear on their farm. Washing your hands under underrated, but it's really important, right? If you're going out to your county fair, just go ahead and wash your hands, maybe take a shower before you're back out in your facilities. That does wonders in trying to keep some of those bad pathogens out of there, some of those bad germs out of there.
And laundering your clothes too.
And laundering your clothes.
Think about that, but don't come home from the county fair and just trot right out to your barn and check on your own animals.
Exactly, and it's so easy because why would you want to shower and then go back out into the farm? I get it, but it really does go a long way.
Yeah.
And then the concept, if you're bringing animals onto your farm, I know that this is really, really big in swine. It's really, really big in horses as well, but quarantining new animals.
Yeah.
Give them time to be by themselves, even if it's just 24 or 48 hours. See if something develops before you introduce them to the rest of your herd. And then really, backyard chickens are one of the things that I wanted to touch on, because we have had this epidemic recently, right? That's been spread from wild birds. And so if there's anything that you can do to keep those chickens enclosed, maybe put a cover over them, prevent those wild birds from coming into contact with those chickens, that also goes a really long way.
Yeah, really super important and great tips to know for, like I was saying earlier, whatever species you have at home. There's little nuances. Disease spread between animals, disease spread between humans and animals, which is fairly rare, but it can happen. Can happen, but fairly rare, fortunately. But the goal here is for all of us to have healthy research animals here at the farm, but also healthy flocks and herds of whatever you have at home. Keep them nice and healthy too. So
exactly,
awesome.
That's our goal.
Yep. So thank you so much for all this great information. Your Purina sales representative is a great source of information. The PurinaMills.com website is a great place to find information. But most importantly, a great place to get help with all this and probably supplies is your local Purina dealer.